Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will set up a traditional search that does not feature live or on-the-fly results, but does work even if a user doesn't have JavaScript enabled in their browser. The reason we would do this is we want our website to make sense for 100% of visitors. And even though 99% of people that come to the site will have JavaScript enabled, that's still not everyone. So for example, if you come to the website and you click the top right search icon, obviously if you have JavaScript, you can perform a live search, no problem. But if you didn't have JavaScript enabled, or if for some reason you had a network or internet connection issue, and the website's JavaScript just failed to download for some reason, well, in that case, if you clicked this icon, absolutely nothing would happen. And that could be very confusing for a lot of visitors. So what we're going to set up in this lesson is for people without JavaScript, if you click on this link, it's going to take you to a traditional, old-fashioned search page. And that will be our fallback or insurance plan. So 99% of people will still be able to perform a live search, but for the other 1%, we have the fallback traditional search page. Now, before we worry about creating a separate search page, I first just want to give you an example of how traditional WordPress searching works. So right now, follow along with me. Up in our address bar, at the very end of the root of our URL, or the homepage URL, you can add on $lowercase s for search, and then just say equals whatever you want to search for. So I could search for biology, and we see biology is cool. The biology program, Dr. barks a lot, because it contains the sentence, I love biology. Okay, so the search worked, but you'll notice that everything looks like a blog post, right? Even though this is the biology program, and even though this is a professor post type, it looks very bloggy. And this is because at the moment, this search results screen is being powered by index.php of our theme folder. That's why we even see up at the top, welcome to our blog. Well, luckily, if you have a file in your theme folder named search.php, WordPress will use that to format and display this search results screen. And a bit later on in this lesson, we will indeed set up a search.php file. But first, let's focus on something that's even a bit more important than the formatting of this results screen. And that is that we can't expect visitors of the website to know that they can tack on a $s equals whatever they want to search for up in their address bar, right? The average visitor has no idea that they can do that. So we need to provide a form, a traditional form that they can fill out and then click submit. And then when they submit the form, it will take them to a URL just like this where they can see the results. So what we're going to do for people that have JavaScript disabled, when they click the top right search icon, we will link them to a new page that contains a search form. Now, before we worry about adjusting this icon to link to a page, let's first go ahead and create a brand new page that can contain the search form. So let me show you what I mean. Right now, let's jump over to the admin dashboard. And in the sidebar, let's hover over Pages and click Add New. For the title, I will say Search, and I can leave the body area completely empty. And then let's go ahead and publish and save that. Okay, and then we can use this permalink here to preview that on the front end. And now within this new page, maybe right about here, let's add a bit of HTML that creates a search form. Now at the moment, this screen is being powered by page.php. But we don't want to modify that generic template that gets used for all pages. So instead, let's go create a new theme file that is only used for this new page or this new URL. So over in our text editor, within our theme folder, let's create a brand new file. And if we give it a name of page dash and then match the slug of this new page, so just search. So page-search.php, then it will be used for just that one page. So if I say hello 123, that's what we see for that URL. Now obviously this is not what we actually want, so instead of that, why don't we just copy and paste the contents from the generic page.php file and then just modify it as needed. So within page, I'm going to copy everything into my clipboard, and then back in page-search, paste it in. Okay, and then down towards the very bottom of this, I'm interested in this div generic content area, where at the moment we see the WordPress function named the content. Now this search form page doesn't need to have any actual WordPress body content, so why don't we delete this PHP block? And instead, this is where we can create an HTML form that visitors can submit. Okay, so opening and closing form tag. And then within the form element, let's add an input where visitors can type in their search phrase. So we could say input type equals text, but in modern HTML, there's actually a type named search. Okay, let's close out that input, and then right below that, let's add a submit button. So create another input. This time I will give it a type of submit, and then we can control the text of the button by saying value equals, and then whatever you want the button to say. So I will say search. Okay, and if I save that, we can see that in the browser, we've now got the basic skeleton for a search form, right? User can click here and type. And now we just need to adjust the form a bit so that it plays along with the WordPress search URL scheme. So if you've never worked with an HTML form before, let me show you what I mean. If we give the text field, this first input, if we give it a name attribute and we name it the field, right? Just make up some name for it. And now, if someone searches for biology and submits the form, up in the address bar we can see that it added on the field equals biology. So we can see that in order to play along with the WordPress search URL format, we just need to make two adjustments. So first, we can just name that input field lowercase s instead of the field. And then the second change that we need to make is instead of adding this on to the end of the search page URL, instead of that, we just want to add on this to the end of the root URL or the home page URL. Now both of those changes are very quick and easy to make. So back in the code, let's name this input simply lowercase s. And then on the opening form tag, if we say action, this is where we can control the URL that it gets sent to. Now by default, an HTML form just submits itself to its own URL. But if we say PHP and then echo out the results of site URL, and then within these parentheses we just say quotes /, this will generate the home page URL for our WordPress installation. And just a quick WordPress security tip, whenever you manually echo a URL that's coming from your database, we should really wrap this within another function named escape URL or ESC URL. So then you could just cut and paste this function to live within the escape function. I'm not going to get into the why or how this improves security because honestly that would be a 3 to 5 minute rant. If you're curious, you can definitely Google the WordPress ESC URL function, but this is considered a security best practice. So if you wanted to go back through our header.php file and use this function anytime we used the site URL function, that would earn you some extra credit security points, and it definitely wouldn't hurt. Really quick though, I will tell you that this isn't going to prevent your site from getting hacked in the first place. This is more to protect the visitors of your site if your site has already been hacked or compromised, or if one of the admins of your website has gone rogue. Okay, but moving on. At this point, we've told the form to add this onto the root of the URL instead of the current page that you're on, and we've also changed the field name to lowercase s. Now, the one other thing I want to do on this opening form tag is give it another attribute named method, and we want to set this to get. If instead we set this to post, then whatever the visitor types into our field would not get added at the end of the URL. Okay, so a method of get will make sure that the contents of the form end up in the URL. A lot of web browsers will default to a value of get, but we always want to be sure to explicitly state this as well. Okay, now if we go ahead and save this, and then if I go back to just /search, and now if I search for math, cool, our form automatically generated this URL for us, which successfully performed a search for math. Now, before we worry about the styling or formatting on this results screen, and before we worry about the styling of our form, right, because this is not going to win any design awards, but before we get to that, we need to make sure that visitors of our website have a way of navigating to that search page. So right now, let's adjust this top right search icon so that if JavaScript is disabled, it takes you to /search. So in order to make that change to this icon, I'm going to dig into our header.php file. And in our HTML, I actually have two copies of that search icon. One for the mobile layout and one for desktop. So we're just going to make a minor change in two locations. The first, just a few lines below our header element, we see a span with a class of JS search trigger, and it contains an I element with the search icon. So let's do this. Let's just convert this span that represents the search icon, let's convert it from a span into an A tag, a link element. So instead of opening span, let's just say A, and then for the closing tag, instead of span, say A, and then we want to be sure to give it an href attribute, right, that points towards /search. So within the quotes for href, let's open up PHP and echo out escape URL, and within those parentheses, let's say site URL, and we want /search. Okay, now this element only shows up in the mobile layout, and then I have another copy of the search icon down below for the desktop layout. So in order to save a bunch of typing, let's just copy this href attribute and value till the end of the quotes. Let's copy that into our clipboard, and then if we scroll down a bit, towards the bottom of the header element, here we see another span with the search icon. So again, let's change this from a span into an A tag. And then within the opening tag, let's paste in our clipboard. Cool. Now if we save this, and now if I click the top right search icon, you can see it temporarily brings up the overlay for a split second, but then it takes me to the /search page. Now if JavaScript is enabled, this is not what we want. For visitors with JavaScript, we want to ignore the default behavior of clicking on a link. Now doing that is very easy. So let's jump into our text editor and let's open up our search JavaScript file. So within the JS folder and then the modules folder, let's hop into search.js. And if we just scroll down to our open overlay method, here it is. This is the method that gets called when you click on that top right icon. And right at the very end of this method, so down here, we can just say return false. And this will prevent the default behavior of A or link elements. So if we save that and make sure that your gulp watch task is running, now if I click this top right icon and I have JavaScript enabled, cool, it doesn't take me to a separate page, it just pulls up the overlay and I'm free to perform a search. However, now let's pretend that we are a visitor with JavaScript disabled. So to simulate that, you could just go into your search.js file and temporarily delete everything. So this way I can pretend that I have JavaScript disabled, and now if I click the top right icon, it takes me to /search. Perfect. Okay, so now that visitors with JavaScript disabled have a way of actually getting to this page, Now let's focus on the design and styling and formatting. Although really quick, before I forget, I'm going to go back into my search.js and press undo, Command or Control Z to get all the code back. I don't want to lose this code. Let me save that. Okay, cool. Now let's get down to styling our search form so that it actually looks nice. So back in our text editor, within page-search PHP, here's the form that we created just a few moments ago. And within the opening form tag, let's give it a class of search-form. This has nothing to do with WordPress. It's just for CSS styling reasons. Okay, and then for accessibility reasons, maybe right above the search field, let's create a label element. And within the label, let's say perform a new search. Okay, and then in order to associate a label with an input, so that if a user clicks on this, it automatically focuses the input field, all you need to do on the opening label, say for S, and then whatever you say that it is for, you just need to provide a matching ID on your target. So then on this input, we can say ID equals S. You just want these to match. Okay, so if we save that, it should look something like this, and clearly we are not done yet. So first, let's make this label text a bit larger, and then after that, let's adjust the sizing of the input so that it uses up the full width of this box, with just enough space left over for the submit button. So first, let's give the label element a class of headline and a second class of headline -- medium. All right, and then in order to make the search field take up all of the available width and just leave a tiny bit of space on the right edge for the submit button, in order to make that happen, I want to wrap them in an outer div. So right before the first input, let's say div and give it a class of search form row. And then you could indent the two inputs. And then right after them, let's close out the div tag. And then finally, let's give classes to the two inputs. Again, this is just for CSS reasons. This has nothing to do with WordPress. So let's give this one a class of S. And let's give the submit a class of search submit. Cool. So if we save that, this is starting to look a lot better. And just for good measure, why don't we give the search field placeholder text? So on the first input, we can just say placeholder equals, and you could enter whatever you want, but I'm going to say, what are you looking for? So now when someone first comes to this page, they see that there, but as soon as they click on it, they can perform a search. And then if they click the submit button, it takes them to the search results. Perfect. And that's going to bring part 1 of this lesson to a close. In the next video, we will learn how to format this search results screen. So that way, all of the results don't look like a blog post, right? This is a professor post type, so it should show a little thumbnail of the professor with the name overlaid on top of it, instead of this generic one-size-fits-all blogish format. So let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next video.